Welcome to the Fertility Mind podcast. I am your host, Jessica Friesen, a certified fertility mindset coach, a sound healer, and an international best-selling author. My mission for this podcast is to give you weekly episodes where you hear my own success with IVF and how mindset and manifestation changed it all for me. You will also hear from my guests who share their success stories in the fertility world. I want you to know that you are not alone. Even when things feel tough and when things feel like they aren't going your way, the tools and techniques you will get in this podcast, I know can change everything for you too. So thanks for being here with me today, and let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to another episode. Today I've got Madi and her husband here with me, Dr. Ryan, and they have a program. It's called Getting Pregnant with Precision. It's a 9-month accelerator course. And I am absolutely fascinated by this couple and what they offer. So without further ado, Madi and Ryan, please take over and tell us a little bit about you and tell us a little bit about your program.
Thank you so much, Jessica. My husband and I, Dr. Ryan, are co-owners of Aspen Wellness Institute, and we have an overarching commitment to humanity, which is the end of human disease. And at the moment, we're heavily focusing on fertility. We want couples struggling with infertility to know that there's an alternative to IVF. That's natural, that's holistic, chemically precise.
Amazing.
Yeah, I think that Dr. Ryan here. So I think that, the value of our program is actually not even just as an alternative to IVF, but it can actually be valuable at sort of all 3 stages of the fertility journey, which is to say, hey, I'm, anywhere from pre-reproductive endocrinology, where you're basically anywhere from the point where you're saying, hey, I think I'd like to get pregnant now and I want to get ready. And in fact, one of the things that we work on with patients is understanding that the first 6 months of our process, we're not going to be actively trying to get you pregnant. That's actually a time when your body should be getting ready. And ideally, I would love to take every young woman who's trying to get pregnant or thinking about becoming pregnant through that 6-month process. Now, a lot of people get pregnant during that time frame. I'm not saying that they don't, but I'm saying that it's really not our focus at that point. We're just working on trying to get the body ready. And then all the way up through to the point where you've been trying for years and years and you're ready to start the reproductive endocrinology route, through to during reproductive endocrinology. If you're in the midst of that, our process can absolutely help optimize the results. To I've gone through it. I've done 6 rounds of IVF, no result. I'm done with traditional reproductive endocrinology. I want something else, or I need something else. We absolutely can help at least 50% of those women. So I think that our highest success rate is obviously at the very beginning, but I think that and I mean that's really the case. We can talk about that more as we go along in terms of the impact of the timing. But suffice it to say that our program is a program that really is helpful at all stages, and but I think can offer people, especially a lot of value, who are both just starting out and maybe not ready to go the reproductive endocrinology route, and also the people who have been through that and are now, okay, well, what's next? What else is out there?
Jessica, you said to us before that nobody expects to be on a fertility journey. And what makes us distinct and our team distinct is that we not only focus on the biochemical pillar, all the science and all the natural science and naturopathic and generative medicine, holistic, but also the pillars of emotion, mindset, and also relationship. We found through conversations with hundreds of women that it's such a missing It's a missing that couples, and especially women, are not supported emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Their relationships, suffer during a fertility journey. And the mindset is just an emotional roller coaster. And so many people are just isolated in this world. And we've seen that it's such an essential piece, to have people supported in a way, have them feel connected, not only to a team that's accessible to them, but a community, that's going through the same thing, so that they don't have to resort to jumping into a Facebook, as an anonymous member, asking questions, or, just a face, we're a face for them and a place of support, like a space for them. Yeah.
I think that's incredible because someone myself that's gone through fertility. So I started my journey in 2014. And one of the first things that my doctor and my fertility nurse said to me, like, stay out of chat rooms, stay off of social media. It's not going to be a place that you want to go. I'm a very curious person. So I was like, why are they telling me this? And to be honest, I really didn't know anything about the fertility world. I was not someone that wanted to do my research, simply because I am very much an empath and I really do feel things. And I wanted to experience it for me, not what everyone was going to tell me I was going to go through or what potential side effects of medications I could go through. I just wanted to authentically experience it. But I was also very curious why they say don't go into, social media. And I understood because it was very much a place of dwindling hope. Everyone sharing, XYZ of their journey and how it wasn't working on the first try. Don't ever think it's going to work on the first try. And I just thought, oh, okay, I don't want to be here. However, over the years, I really felt the need to help people. And so I've remained in a lot of social media groups, and I talked to Maddie last week and I explained to her, like, I even got kicked out of some groups simply because they're just like, oh, well, you've had your baby, you're lucky. I'm thinking, I don't believe in luck though. Yes, I was able to have 2 successful pregnancies, which is incredible. And every day I feel mass amount of gratitude that I have my babies with me. But the truth is that mindset is a huge piece. And I didn't really know anything about mindset until my secondary fertility journey. And it really changed the way I thought about things. It really changed the way I think. But so many women truly feel alone because there's still this stigma talking about miscarriage. There's still the stigma of talking about infertility. And women take something on upon themselves, like there's something wrong with me because I'm not getting pregnant. And one of my very first clients that I had, her and her husband were in a very rocky situation because he was blaming her a lot for fertility. And so the first thing I did is I said, you guys have to work on your mindset together, that you two are here together. It's a 2-person thing, even though, yes, obviously the woman carries the baby. She has to house the baby for 9 months. But I really got them connecting with their mindset and how they feel. And I got her to stop thinking about really, it's not stop blaming yourself that there's something wrong with your body or that you are not perfect or things like that. Just really focusing on the end goal of how amazing it would be to have your baby and focus on different things and hold your mindset in a place of this isn't happening like to you and that it's horrible, and start focusing on the things that you can control and focus on bringing love back into your environment so you're not in this place of like, please God, make this work because I need my marriage and I want a baby. And like you said, Maddie, a lot of relationships do suffer. There can be resentment if it's a one-sided thing. There can be, I've spoken with a lot of women when it's both people that are experiencing something, they're more on a level playing field, but there's still like I said, no one ever wants to be on a fertility journey. No one ever wants to pay to have a baby. And so I think having different alternatives where people you feel supported that understand mindset as a piece and that look as your body as a whole, not just a reproductive system. So yeah, that's my 2 cents, but so keep explaining
Yeah.
things.
So a couple of things, Jessica. I acknowledge you for just saying it straight that you are an empath. That you have that conscious awareness about yourself, because I am very much one. So I and second, you said something very, very powerful about people taking on, um, whether it be a paradigm, whether it be something that is said from an outside source, say conventional fertility doctors, and they end up embodying, this hopelessness. They end up telling other people, other women, you have 0.5% chance. So I have some things to say about that. Um, our bodies were designed for this, one, and two, having a baby in 2023 is vastly different than it was even a decade ago, 20 years ago, with the environmental toxins, with the 45,000 additional, chemicals that are introduced into our food supply and our products. And that has a biochemical impact, and this is where Dr. Ryan's specialty really comes in uncovering all of that. And we also uncover like lifelong trauma, that absolutely affects a person's nervous system and their emotional makeup. All of that matters when taking a look at having a baby in 2023. Dr. Ryan, I'd love for you to speak a little bit more on like that it matters biochemically, to look at these things.
Sure. Before I do that, I have at least one other thing I wanted to address in what Jessica just said, which is, I think that it's such an important message to first acknowledge the fact that women have been getting blamed for fertility issues since at least we know for sure Henry VIII of England, right? Probably before that. And how absurd was that, given that we now know that men are the ones that are responsible for whether that's the child is a boy or a girl, and that's had nothing to do with a woman, right? But women were still getting blamed even for that. So I think there's centuries of generational trauma to resolve in this area, is the first thing I would say. And the second thing in that is just, I've even seen in my practice, couples show up, women show up, and they say, well, I'm having a fertility issue. And then it turns out that the man's sperm hasn't even been evaluated, right? It's like, well, I mean, I'm only working with half of the picture here. I mean, what's the assumption that, that the issue is with you? So I think that it is really crucial to understand that this is not just an issue of, also sperm count or sperm quality on the male side, but also the compatibility between the man and the woman biochemically. And that, is a pretty good segue into what Maddie was asking me about, is that ultimately that one of the big factors that we take a look at is sort of that compatibility. And specifically on a real granular level, I can tell you that one of the most important ones is blood type. Blood type is, people know that obviously if someone has a different blood type than them, they can't have a blood transfusion from that person. Typically, depends on the blood types, but nor could they get their organs, say, in an organ transplant. But people assume they'll be able to carry the baby. It's like, well, maybe, if the baby turns out to be compatible with the mother, but if the baby's genetics are incompatible with the mother's genetics, and the mother is sort of set to reject that baby's, antigenic character, which is to say kind of their blood type, right? Then it just makes very simple sense to say, well, just like you would have a bad transfusion reaction, you're going to have a miscarriage because this baby you have a lot of of autoantibodies, antibodies you have produced against this other blood type that is going to be present all throughout this child, and that your body's going to reject it, saying that's a foreign entity essentially. And there's ways in which we actually, and this gets into sort of more of a nutritional approach, but there's ways in which we actually can eat or not eat to increase or decrease those levels of autoantibodies, basically against the opposing blood group antigen. So it turns out that, in fact, what has us produce those antibodies to begin with is not that we got exposed to the other blood types. It's that we got exposed to antigens, or basically usually proteins, often glycoproteins that are on the outside of cells, that look similar to those other blood types that are found in our food. So it's more of a way for our body to help sort of distinguish self versus other, and what foods are good for me, what foods aren't. And it turns out that blood type antigen is lining our entire digestive tract. It's on all of our organs as well. And in fact, 85% of us secrete it in our saliva and other bodily fluids. But before you ask me my next question,
I just want to take a moment to present everybody that's listening to the beauty of this science. I mean, there is a way with each and every single action that you take, everything that you put into your mouth, that could honor your biochemical individuality, and that could really empower your body, to prepare for pregnancy naturally and powerfully. And that we love to take the science of that on. We love to teach that. There is a way, and it's kind of like the way that we look at the science is going through a back door, of a human being's uniqueness. Not just putting all these statistics and of age and of and sticking you in a box. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just so beautiful to me. And also, I wanted to mention, the whole Henry VIII thing. What kind of multi-generational trauma is that? At a time when women were made to divorce, were killed and blamed. Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you guys are talking about the science of things, because fears that stepped in. So I had no idea until I entered the fertility world that I had the strand of Rh negative. And then, so when they tested my husband's blood type, I thought, like, why are you testing him? Like, don't I just need to know about his sperm? And they said, no, we need to know everything about him. I thought, okay, well, that's cool. But I didn't ask a lot of questions. And then it wasn't until I had my miscarriage, I had to have, a RhoGAM shot. And I asked, I thought, why? And they said, because it could affect future births. It could affect a whole bunch of things. And they asked what my husband's blood type was. And I said, it's A negative. And they said, okay, it's good that you're both negative, because you can't really have a baby if he's positive and you're negative. I thought, oh, and again, because I was in a state, I never asked any questions. But I think this is incredible for anyone listening to this to understand that, no, it doesn't mean you have to go find another partner because of their blood type, that there is things that you can do. And so many of us are not aware of what goes on daily in our body. We just wake up, eat, sleep, repeat, do our daily tasks. And, I think I'm not trying to stereotype or put anyone in a box, but I think no one actually really thinks about their body. We just say, hey, whatever state we are in our life, we decide we want to grow a family. And that's really the biggest part of it. We don't start thinking about our biogenetics. We don't think about anything. It's just, okay, I want to start my family, so I'm going to start. And, take your prenatal vitamins and you should be good to go. So I think this is an absolutely incredible conversation, and keep going.
Yes, you make such a beautiful point, Jessica, because in this day and age, there are so many things that either technology or lifestyle or the way we think we're supposed to live life cuts us off from like a foundational instinct, like a fundamental connection with our mind, our bodies, and our spirit.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And there's that rude awakening that happens, and people get flustered. Women get confused, and they're grasping for
answers, for help,
and help, and they get cornered. They get into a place of desperation, at that point.
Yeah, and just even speaking of nutrition, like I feel that there's so much confusion of nutrition in the world because you can try and follow, the food guide, you can try and follow all the things, but there's confusion. And, not everything works for you if you follow the food guide, if you've got food sensitivities, if you've got other things. And I think, as women, when we mentally think, okay, I should start eating a little healthier, I want to have a baby, where do you start? You think,
Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that, Jessica. I just want to bring up an example. There's a Facebook group who there's this older woman who was a vegan, that gave birth to a baby. She conceived naturally, and so there's this whole like, okay, I'm gonna become a vegan, like the whole train. I want to interrupt that for a second. Personalized nutrition is indeed personalized. Diet is very, very different from one person to another. It's not one size fits all. And there are no two people with the same microbiome, with the same environment, and with the same, gut biome.
And genetics.
Yeah. Yes. So it's not like veganism is not going to work for everybody. And I can list a whole, line of diets. It's not one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also something that we support people in discerning through bioinformatics platforms, through blood type, it gets very granular.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, blood type is one of over 200 variables that we collect, but it's interesting. It's fun to talk about, and it is fairly significant. I mean, I see, for example, I've seen many times where type O mothers, like in your example, who have a type A or a type B husband, will have trouble carrying a child to term because they produce a lot of anti-B and anti-A antibodies. And so, if there's a lot of, little things that can happen over the course of a pregnancy that may expose the baby to those antibodies. And then, the baby essentially is under attack by their mother's own immune system. So that could be a real factor. And I've seen it over and over and over again. And that there are nutritional strategies that can be employed, certainly ideally in advance, but also during pregnancy to kind of tamp down or calm down that immune response so that, and literally the way you do it is by avoiding foods that look like your spouse's blood type, right? So if you're the mother and you're carrying you're an O mother and you're carrying an A child, then any kind of A-like foods, you got to cut those out, right? Because they're just drumming up that immune response against your own baby. People don't even think about that, but it's actually, when you know the basic science behind it, it becomes pretty obvious. So, and to be fair, I did residency with the Dr. Peter Diadamo, who I will always give shout outs to on every podcast I do, because he's like he would say the godfather of personalized nutrition. And, the founder of the Institute for Functional Medicine, Dr. Bland, has, cited him, and he's got a whole chapter in his book on nutritional individuality, talking about Dr. Diadamo. But Dr. Diadamo's work is really the initial fundamental work in the world of biochemical individuality. And it started with blood type, because blood type is a gene that we've been able to discern for, at this point, over 100 years. And so it became an early focus. And of course, as we develop more genes that we're able to test for more genes, now we add more genes to the picture. But I would say that as recently as I think 2014, Yale and Albert Einstein schools of medicine did a look at the Human Genome Project to determine, okay, if we only had one gene, what would determine our cardiovascular risk? Which one would we want to test for to really be able to discern someone's lifetime risk of cardiovascular disease? It was ABO blood group. Well, we have studies dating back to the 1920s looking at ABO blood group showing that type A's are at the highest risk of cardiovascular events, type O's are at the lowest. And that's been verified over many, many, many studies. So, but again, this is not something where there's a pharmaceutical intervention. So you're not going to hear about it on television, right? In fact, you're probably going to hear that there's nothing to it, nothing to see here, because again, there's no pharmaceutical intervention. There's no RhoGAM shot equivalent for this blood type incompatibility that we're describing. It's literally, right now, dietary avoidance is the only treatment for that particular genetic incompatibility. So I think that, there's one other thing I wanted to circle back on, which is this idea of the fertility journey. When Maddie had a miscarriage in between our first and second child. And, one of the things that really helped me contextualize that and, to put it in the broader sort of pregnancy journey context was that the idea that this trying to get pregnant, essentially a game we're playing. And we don't have to play that game. But in choosing to play that game, there are certain potential outcomes that could show up, right? We could have a healthy baby. We could have a baby with health issues. We could have no baby. We could have a stillbirth. We could have miscarriage. There's lots of different, could never get, could not conceive. And there's a lot of different possibilities. There's a lot of different potential outcomes. And sort of wrapping your head around that and saying, okay, from the start. And I think that's one of the things that needs to be more in the conversation is there needs to be this awareness that everyone's on a fertility journey. That's actually, that's part of this. It's part of life. If you're interested in reproducing, that's part of what you're going to be going through. And that having that mindset of, okay, this is a game I'm playing. Here are the potential outcomes. The rules. I don't know all the rules ahead of time. I'm going to have to learn them as I go, and I may never learn all of them, but hopefully I get to the finish line. Is kind of how it looks. And frankly, our goal is really to help our patients discern and uncover and recognize some of the rules of the game, some of the pitfalls, some of the obstacles that may be getting in their way that they can't see. And so that then they can get to the finish line, hopefully more easily and with a successful outcome. So that's,
and with our peace of mind, intact.
Yeah.
I have benefited extraordinarily through, not only my marriage to Dr. Ryan, and benefiting from his whole world, of generative naturopathic medicine, and getting all the knowledge, from also Dr. Peter Diadamo. I was 39 when I conceived and gave birth naturally. And I also conceived naturally and gave birth at 43. I'm now 45, and you can bet that we're, on a journey to get pregnant with precision, to have our third healthy baby, naturally. So because I've experienced, that kind of support and that kind of peace of mind and ease, I want couples to know that this is available to them as well, and that they have the support, and that they don't have to, go through a journey full of pitfalls, and challenges. And there will be challenges, of course, but to have their hands held, in a way that is, what's the word I'm looking for?
Well, I mean, to me, I think that when I think about the way we take people through the process, it's a very, it can be intense, but it can also be really very loving.
Thank you.
You
Yes.
and sometimes, love looks like, hey, what you're doing is just, it's not working. It's not going to work for what you're committed to. And, kind of holding people accountable to what they're committed to and the actions that are going to be necessary to achieve that objective. But that's really part of, I love what Carol Burnett says about love. She says, sometimes you have to love somebody enough to let them hate you. And on its face, it's like, what is she talking about? She's talking about her daughter, who was an addict, and what it took to really pull her, from the brink of death, frankly, in that conversation. But, I think it's so beautiful because I remind that, whenever my son's unhappy with something that I've said or that I want him to do, I'm like, okay, I got it. You're not happy. You want to validate the emotion, of course, because the emotions are real and they're there, and there's no right or wrong emotion. And, it doesn't alter the fundamental truth underlying that certain actions are going to bring you closer to your objective and certain actions are going to take you further away. And, our job is to really help you discern what those actions are and then guide you through that process with as much love and compassion as we can.
So I'm tearing up right now. Jessica, I love letting my husband finish my sentences because it's so wonderful hearing it from a man, what he just said. And I'm often moved by him. So.
That's incredible. And honestly, I wish people could see what I see on screen because you guys do have something beautiful. And yeah, I think what you do, what the two of you are doing is incredible because I follow this Beachbody super trainer, absolutely love her. And she talks about some of her clients that they want to get super fit for their wedding. And so she goes through their diet, she goes through all the things with them, creates a plan for them. But then they'll say I drink a bottle of wine every night and I'm not giving it up. And then she's like, okay, well then certain things aren't going to work. You can get a bit more toned, but and she's like, well, I'm not willing to give up my bottle of wine every night. And she's like, okay, then when you're ready to work with me fully, I will work with you fully, but do not expect the results if you're not willing to do certain things. She's like, you can have 1 or 2 glasses of wine a week, maybe even 1 glass of wine a night, maybe not a whole bottle. But I love, tough love is not the right word, but it's a bit, you love someone enough to tell them, hey, and, I've spoken with a lot of women in the fertility world that say to me, I'm already overwhelmed with, my schedule of my treatment plan and then gearing up to an egg retrieval, gearing up to all the things. I don't want to have to think about my food. I just want to eat what I want to eat. I want to be comforted. And I think, okay, that's one approach. And I talk to them about their mindset about that too. If you flip your perspective that you're doing everything that you can to have this healthy pregnancy because you're already in the fertility world, flip it that way. It doesn't have to feel like this, overwhelm of now I have to change my diet. Now I have to do this. It's going to cost me more money to eat organic versus eating just regular. And I really talk to them about giving themselves medical amnesia. That's what I tell them all the time, because some of my clients, they instantly go in thinking, okay, I'm 38, I'm 39, and I'm in the fertility world. My doctor's already told me it's going to be harder for me to get pregnant. And then I tell them, but you're automatically telling yourself it's going to be harder to get pregnant. And, I know one of my reading partners in the morning, she was 48 when she decided she wanted to have a family. And so the first place she went to was a fertility clinic. And they said, oh, you're 48. Chances are it's not going to happen. Within 3 months of trying, she was pregnant because she was just so focused on her mindset. I'm going to have this baby. I don't care what these doctors say. And she did get pregnant naturally. And that's what I try and tell people. Stop worrying about your genetic biological clock, because your body, like you've said, your body is designed to do this. We've been doing this since the end of time, and we will. Or I should say the beginning of time, not the end of time. But I think it's incredible for people to have a face. Because I can contest, when I went into my first fertility clinics, I saw my doctor maybe 5 times. I knew the nurses more than I knew my doctors, and my nurses were incredible. But my fertility clinic closed just after I had my egg retrieval, and I was left in limbo. And the nurses were let go, things were changing. I thought, what do I do? And, then we were automatically transferred to a new fertility clinic. And I absolutely loved the doctor that I had. He was very straight to the point. There was no love in it, though. It was, you're doing this, end of capiche. I've got a million other patients I've got to see today. If you have a question, have your list. We'll get through it. That's it. And at that time, I was like, just tell me what I need to do and I'll do it. But not a lot of further testing happened because it was already done at a different clinic. And I had so many questions after the fact, simply because not a lot of things were like, my husband has 3 children from a previous marriage, and they got pregnant naturally. And we ended up finding out after he had a vasectomy, and then he had a vasectomy, we had it reversed, but there was complications with his original vasectomy. And so when we had it reversed, there was all these different things. But through different doctors, we learned different procedures, but we had already had an egg retrieval. And then, because I said, like, why couldn't we have done an IUI? And if we did a PISA with him and his sperm was fine, why couldn't we start with IUI? Like, why are we right at full IVF with ICSI? And they couldn't explain that. And they said, all the work has already been done at the old clinic. We're just going to get you pregnant here. I thought, okay. And not to say anything bad about the fertility clinics, because I truly believe I had the journeys that I was supposed to have, so maybe I can relate to more people. But I don't hold resentment to any clinic or any nurse. I at the end of the day, I got to have my babies and it was amazing, but I was left with a lot of questions and I didn't have a lot of faces because I was in a very big fertility clinic that has thousands and thousands and thousands of patients. So you're more a number than a face. And I felt like when I had a specific nurse assigned to me, then I actually felt like I was a face to someone. I wasn't just a number. And that was a very different experience. So I think the two of you, the fact that there is a face that someone can see and that you are even saying, you know what, we will tell you this part isn't working for you. I think that's incredible. Instead of, well, it's not working, we'll just try the next thing. It's okay. Just hold on to hope. And I feel like that's, at least my experiences, I can't speak for everyone. I feel like that's a lot of experiences that women are getting in the fertility world because, one of my podcasts, the woman that I reviewed, she's also one of my other reading partners. She lives in Brooklyn, and this was 23 years ago. But she just shared that, like, even 23 years ago, the fertility clinics were very filled. And her clinic got shut down simply because he knew it was a great place to make a lot of money because people will pay to have their babies. So I think it's incredible of what the two of you are doing, and there's a face and that it's not just a number. So I do applaud you for that. I think that's incredible. And I'm excited for anyone that's listening to know that there's so many more things that they can do out there. And if you do want to try naturally, when I started seeing a naturopathic doctor, she talked about vitamins to help change my husband's sperm. I'm thinking, why didn't my own fertility clinic ever talk about these vitamins? Or talk about different things for me? So again, this is where I started going down rabbit holes, but good rabbit holes of asking questions and saying there's so much more out there. And that's where, the podcast really came about. Was I want to help as many people as possible, but I want them to know there's so many things out there that they can do as well, that it doesn't necessarily mean being in a conventional fertility clinic or even anything that they can do to optimize health. it's a passion of mine. So
Thank
continue
you,
on.
Jessica. Thank you. So I wanted to just take a moment to fully receive your acknowledgement. And I also wanted to circle back and acknowledge my husband as well, because, he had this beautiful science brain, but he doctors from that space and that source of love. And that's just so rare
Mhm.
these days. And I also want to mention something that, you make such a great point. You said you come up against a lot in your fertility mindset coaching, with women who have had enough. I'm done. I'm not going to alter my diet. I'm not going to do this and that. I'm not going to do what it takes, to get what I really want.
Mhm.
Just want to kind of pause, because that's kind of, we come up against that as well. And it's it's culturally like a culture of medicating, whether through alcohol, whether through diet, whether through, and it's these actions that are thwarting what it is, we really want for ourselves. So there's a lot to uncover there
Mhm.
emotionally. Like there's a way to support people in clearing those emotions, because people pick things up all the time.
Mhm.
And we all deserve to be validated, for what we're going through mentally, physically, emotionally.
Absolutely.
To even be able to create the space, like, okay, I'm open. I have just a little bit of willingness, and that's all it takes. That little willingness to take on something new, something that may be radical for you in your life. And that's also something that we will support couples through.
Yeah, I think that it really, our approach is as close to a white glove approach as we can manage being 100% remote, right? Like we're, Zoom, phone calls, emails, texts. And, our patients do get our private cell phone numbers. They are able to contact us 7 days a week. It's a much more of a one-on-one close interaction, like what you're describing, and you're really yearning for, like, hey, I wish I'd had this. I mean, that's really what we're providing patients is someone on our team is going to be available when they need them. And I would say that we're really committed to that kind of an approach, because it's really what I think people need. And ideally, and I wish everybody could have that, but it's something that certainly in our practice we're committed to providing to our patients. And just to circle back on one thing that you had mentioned about the prenatals and the multivitamins for your husband. I mean, when you first mentioned the word prenatal, my first thought was, okay, but what prenatal? Because not all prenatals are created equally. And in fact, I would argue that a prenatal by itself usually provides insufficient omega-3 fatty acids, insufficient calcium, amongst other things, probiotics that are really have been shown to not only be helpful during pregnancy, but also to really contribute to the ultimate health of the baby. And so, it's really not just about optimizing fertility that we're interested in. Sure, that's a great starting point, but it's also about optimizing the health of my baby, so that, like, I'm really setting that baby up powerfully when they come into the world to be as healthy and have as healthy a lifetime, a lifespan as possible, and to have as healthy bone structure and as healthy brain and all the things that I care about in my children. I'm literally forming those, and I'm speaking as the mother, right? Like the mother is literally forming those in that moment, during that 9-month window. And really, we're very cognizant of that and wanting to really support not just mom's health, but also baby's health. And part of our program is also providing education and resources and experts to come in and speak to different aspects of, okay, well, what about after, what about birth and all the different ways to handle birth? And what about after, and looking at pediatric care and different options in that realm, and sort of what are the best ways that we have found through our both research as well as personal experience that really seem to help set kids up powerfully for this world that we're bringing them into, right? Because there's a lot of novelty, there's a lot of new stuff in our society that frankly wasn't here 100 years ago, or certainly not 500 years ago. And so there's, being aware of all that, and sort of the various pitfalls that we've seen. And, we could probably dedicate a podcast to each of those pitfalls, but I would just say that, helping patients to identify those things and be aware of them, I think, and that speaks to the fact that we always work with couples. That's a unique thing in our approach, is that we really see that it takes two. And so I think addressing both sides of that is really important. And I think that, so I'll toss it back to you.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on a note. You're talking about nutraceuticals, food-derived medicines. There's so much that we can do to reverse biological age. I mean, we all have a chronological age, right? And there's just so much in the way of this amazing medicine, that we can reverse. I made a comment in a Facebook group about reversing biological age, and that there's so many actions that we can take. I got laughed at, because women are always talking about your eggs are too old. Like they're saying it themselves. I'm all, which is kind of odd to me. Like, where's the support in this group?
Mm-hmm.
And I've had women and men, come to me. Are you guys scammers? Is this a scam? And then, I'll get my feathers ruffled up. I'm all, what? But then I'll take a look at that, that reaction. And it's so apparent to me that we're largely an unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we are an unknown voice that deserves to be heard. We are an unknown voice that could possibly alter the trajectory of lives out there. And we're an unknown voice that will slowly become louder and louder and louder through partnerships with people like you. So thank you.
You're welcome. I honestly believe there's so much light in the world, and light needs to find light. Because I agree with you, there is so many people that just hear or have this thought in their head that there is a biological clock, or no, you can't change your sperm or your egg DNA. You can't change these things. And I think it's so important for people to know that there is so many options available to them. I truly do believe that the body is designed to heal itself, but we provide it with certain things like bad food, or, I'm sure we all have our bad habits. But if we provide ourselves with the optimal things, our body will work optimally. And I give the scenario to my clients. When you are driving your car, you go fill it up with gas. So it goes. You won't fill it up with vegetable oil or some type of oil to make it work. But that's what a lot of people are doing. They're just providing it with certain things to make it do what it can do or should do. But you're not filling it up with the premium things that you could do. And I deal with a lot of clients that for them, money is an issue. Like they think, oh, like I would absolutely love this treatment, but my bank account says I've only got enough for this. And again, I really
Listen, that's another mindset conversation that we can have like a whole, another podcast about. Yeah, money absolutely. Mindset. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and I've shared in my podcast episodes, like my husband and I had literally no money in our bank account to do fertility treatments. And, I truly believe that money is energy, that I believe in the universe, God, creator, spirit, whatever you resonate with. I like the term universe. But I truly believe when you make the decision to do something, things conspire to work for you. And money showed up for us in different ways that we were able to do fertility treatments. And I think when you really want something bad enough, you will find the money for it. Maybe it means you don't, go to the movies or, go to your daily shopping trips and do the things. Like everyone has their own lifestyle, but you can find ways to have the things that you want if you truly want it. And I know so many women, and sometimes it's hard for people to hear because they say, well, absolutely, I want to have a baby, but I don't have the money for this. I can't do this. I can't do that. And I think, then how bad do you want it? And I know that sometimes that comes across as untactful, or they're just like, that's so mean to say. And I just say, but what are you willing to do? Because if you trust and believe, things will start aligning for you and it will start working for you. And you can find ways to pay for the things that you want to pay for so that you can prepare yourself for all the things.
Thank you for asking your coaching clients the hard questions, Jessica, and to have them confronted, and a little ruffled up, because that's where, if you're willing to be in the inquiry, of what has you be so in reaction, there will be a possibility that will arise.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you for being somebody that is not, all love and vibes and.
Well, and that's the thing. I truly say no aspect of life, even when you really have a great mindset or different things, it does not mean that it's all hearts and sparkles. There is contrast that will always exist. It's just how you deal with them and how you choose to perceive it and how you can flip the perspective and how you can really change your mindset around things. And I know there's lots of things people say lots of different things about being a fertility mindset coach of, oh, you can't do things. I think, well, then that's a belief you may hold. And that's the truth. Like my line of work isn't necessarily easy, and I didn't get into it because I thought it was easy. I just have a heart where I just want to help women, especially that are going through a harder time. And if I can help change their mindset or direct them to someone that can help them, like their biomedical things and understand how they individually work, I am more than willing to do that because I believe that in this world there is more than enough for every single person. But it's just more than anything, I think it's so important that people know that there's so many, and I repeat this 100 times, there's so many different things out there for them other than what you learn right here and right now. And to connect people, that is what I would love to do. So, and I am with my whole heart, I do think what you two are doing is amazing. And I do think that it should be known that people can change different things, or that, even when you're in the fertility clinic, they don't tell you everything. And I feel like unless you have a laundry list of questions to ask your fertility doctor, a lot of women or couples go into it just saying, like, tell me what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And doctors, at least in my experience in the fertility clinics, they're not going to tell you everything. They will just answer your questions. And, and I think it's amazing that you've said, you guys provide your individual cell phone numbers. If you have a worry or a fear, that they can contact you or ask you. And that is such an individualized care that I think is so unique. So I guess one question that I would ask, so women that have like a sperm donor, is there things in your clinic that you could do, like to test the sperm if you had a sperm donor or things like that? Because I know obviously if it's a heterosexual couple, you can test the male and things like that. Is there things that you have if they were using a sperm donor or an egg donor that you guys have in your clinic?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I would say that a sperm donor, typically, if they're like you're talking about a sperm donor through a fertility clinic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, typically they're going to be testing that sperm. If you're a sperm donor, I mean, again, this is not my area of expertise. I'll go ahead and just say that up front.
Yeah.
But typically, if you're going to have a sperm donor, that sperm is going to be sort of pre-vetted before they're going to even allow that person to become a sperm donor, and then to see like how, and there's no way I can control and find out, okay, this sperm donor who may be anonymous, but has certain characteristics, whether what they were eating, or what vitamins they weren't taking, that kind of thing. But in terms of the fundamental, sperm testing that we do typically on all men that come through the practice, they're just looking at morphology and motility and things like that. That typically is evaluated by these sperm donation facilities. I think it's my understanding. So, I think that given that, given say a same-sex couple, the focus would obviously be on the one that would be carrying the baby, right? And that's a very great question. And I would say that the other thing, though, that's really interesting is in the case of a same-sex couple that would be two women, is that there's a methodology which we use in our practice for if they both want to breastfeed, and it's used in women who adopt. And so in a case of where a woman adopts a child, she can take certain hormonal treatments to be able to produce breast milk to help with the bonding with the child. So that's really fun when you have two moms and they both want to breastfeed. Obviously, the one carrying the baby will have an easier time of it, but then they technically both can, and that can be really great, a really fun experience. Fortunately, there's no way yet to have a man be able to breastfeed. I wish, believe me, I probably would have done that if it were an option. But because we don't go through female puberty, our breasts don't, develop that breast tissue that produces the milk, and so therefore, even if we were to take the hormones as adults, it's sort of we pass the window. But yeah, that's a great question, and
we can support couples that choose to go through IVF to optimize their chances,
right?
Whether it be somebody that's going in with a sperm donor
or IUI.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, because again, for example, most people when they're picking their sperm don't ask themselves, well, okay, is the blood type of this sperm going to be compatible with? But that is something that you can find out, right? You can find the blood type of the person who had the sperm. That's part of what they collect, the data they collect on these sperm donors. And so that's something where a lot of couples don't even think to say, okay, well, what blood type am I going to pick for my sperm that I'm choosing? That's an important variable to consider, obviously, and that's I would say probably one of the most important, if not the most important. So again, that gets back to your question, and I think that
we could absolutely be in partnership, with people in that way.
Yeah,
powerfully.
Thank you. I think that's incredible because I think the question in my head, I've never had to go through a sperm donor, and I did interview this beautiful lesbian couple, and they shared a little bit about their story about how they chose a sperm donor, but none of it, like their DNA or anything, was part of it. Like they just read a profile, and yes, on the profile, obviously, it would say their blood type and things like that. But I think that this is interesting because if you were in the point where you were choosing sperm donation, because I know at one point in my journey, the fertility doctor said, if you don't want to go through a PISA, if you don't want to go through different things, you can always use a sperm donor. And where my husband and I were in our relationship and at where we were at our point in the journey, we just said, no, that's not for us. And I know sperm donation is different vastly across clinics and, Canada and the States and all around the world. But I think that is something great for listeners to hear, that if they were in the point where they needed a sperm donation, to look at, what is your blood type and what is their blood type, and it might veer them away from a certain sperm donor simply because it may cause complications with their pregnancy. So I think that that's incredible that you guys can touch on that and that you just shared that information. So thank you.
Sure.
I honestly feel like this could go on and on.
I know.
I'm completely fascinated, and the two of you are just filling my heart. It feels amazing. Is there anything else that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I have a request of you.
Okay, yes.
I'd love to be back on your podcast when I'm pregnant.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. That would be amazing. So obviously stay in touch with me, and we'll get you on as soon as we can once you're pregnant. And I'm excited for this. And yes, it will be a whole different conversation, which is amazing. And I really do, I'm a broken record, but I am so, so thankful that we got connected. And this is what I mean. I really believe in synchronicities. I'm glad that my co-author introduced me and you, Maddie. I think it's the universe conspired so that you could be on my podcast and that we are here today. But thank you both for doing what you do. And I hope that many of my listeners can use your services, because I think it would be so valuable and so, so incredible to them. And, you know, from someone that didn't get to conceive naturally, I did have to work through some inner thoughts of that, and I say this with love. My husband got to conceive 3 children naturally with someone else, and I didn't get that part of him. And I'm okay with that now. And I really do believe I had the journeys that I had so that I truly can help people. But yeah, there is so many things that didn't happen, and I worked through them because I changed my mindset. And if I knew about you in 2014 and again in 2019, I would have gladly used your services. And I'm sure if I'm in the near future, as I just finished nursing my son of 2.5 years, so all the hormones and all the things are changing. So yes, in any way, I would love to understand what's going on in my body and make it work optimally again. And more so just for me now, not for me and my son. So I applaud you for what you guys do. I think it's incredible. I'm beyond blessed that we got to be connected. And Maddie, I'm excited to have you on again when you're pregnant with your 3rd baby. And just and also thank you for sharing that you had a miscarriage, because I know a lot of people don't touch on that either. Even when it's happened to them, they just go, well, I still have 2 healthy babies, so I'm thankful for that. So thank you for sharing that information.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yes, it's important not to bypass, the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for your acknowledgement. You are extraordinary. Thank you for the heart and soul and courage and bravery that you embody through each and every single word to your audience. And thank you so much for having us on. It's been a true joy. I love, this dance that we're doing as an empath. I feel you.
Yes.
I feel you. I just love you.
Thank you.
Well, I know we're wrapping up, and you brought up something that I can't I can't just say, okay, bye. The whole conversation on hormones, which we didn't even get into, but I think that, it speaks to sort of what it is that you mentioned twice about how you kind of felt that you went to these fertility clinics and they didn't really tell you anything. It sort of answered questions, and then they told you the next action to take, And really, when we're talking about mindset, it's so important to have the intention. It's so important to have the desire, as you said, but also the actions correlate to that desire. And I think that's really what, as people understand, okay, mindset is mindset, but then not mindset, and then a fairy's going to come down and magically provide me what I want. It's more mindset, and then actions correlate to that mindset that are going to produce the results that you're committed to. But I would say in that vein, understanding that, reproductive endocrinology essentially they're providing a product. They have a certain algorithm that they're following. And it's a very algorithmic approach. It's not a personalized, individualized approach, which is, what we're offering. So it's very much, if you kind of understand that, you know what it is going in, then you can sort of leverage that understanding, that awareness, to kind of maximize what you get out of it. But you will also have realistic expectations about what you're going to get out of that, and not sort of, expect one thing when that's not really what they're set up to do. And I love that you worked with a team of people, because it sounds like that's really, and that's really what ultimately our practice provides, is that sort of team of people. Now, we don't do IVF, although we can provide referrals, right? And we can work with your IVF clinic if you're doing that. But I would say that just to speak on the hormone piece for a second, which is what sort of had me interrupt, which is that, we use bioidentical, natural hormones in our practice. And one of the things that often gets missed or stepped over because, hey, let's go straight to IUI, IVF, is the importance of making sure that your hormones are where they need to be. And, for conception and also for maintenance. During Maddie's second pregnancy, during that sort of 12 to 13 week time period or not second pregnancy, but third pregnancy, second child, where the placenta is taking over progesterone production, she experienced kind of a lag in progesterone. So we had to do some supplemental progesterone, natural bioidentical progesterone, to help her maintain the pregnancy. And it worked beautifully. And we often find that it does work beautifully. So if people are having miscarriages, even early miscarriages, some women need progesterone supplementation in the first few weeks to help the pregnancy be able to essentially take root, if you will, implant and be successful in the early weeks. That's very common, where we're finding that that's really important. And then also progesterone at various points, if there's threatened miscarriage, can be very valuable. There's a lot more that could be said about hormone balancing, and certainly as we look at the perimenopausal stage or menopausal stage, is it possible to sort of rescue hormone production to the point where maybe we can extend a woman's fertility by 5 or more years? Yeah, that's certainly possible. And it gets into the way that I approach hormone supplementation, which again is very much natural, bioidentical, looking at the whole pathway and saying, okay, where's the breakdown occurring? And sort of putting in where the breakdown is occurring, putting in the correct hormones, not saying, oh, well, you're a woman and you're this age and you're having these symptoms and I'm going to treat your symptoms. To some degree, the symptoms do help guide the treatment, but I would say that it's more so looking at where the breakdown in that pathway is and putting in the missing piece, because there's several steps in the process of making estrogen, progesterone. There's different estrogens. And anyway, we could, like I said,
responding with speed, as there are many stories that I've read or heard about from other women that, they're pregnant and, it takes a week or two to get in with their OBGYN, or some offices will not write that prescription for progesterone. And then it ends up in a loss.
Yeah. So, I think having a team that's there for you, 7 days a week, is important in this whole process as well. So, but yeah, and then certainly, not necessarily germane to fertility, but certainly in terms of hormone balancing and preventive medicine in general. We have other offerings for women who maybe they've had their kids, but they're sort of now like, okay, I'm facing menopause and I want to do that in a way that's going to help preserve as much of my youth and vitality and health as I can. And bioidentical hormone replacement is essentially one of the best preventive medicines that you can engage in, because if you can take those hormone levels and sort of prevent them from falling off a cliff, which is what happens in menopause, by having them kind of plateau and sort of gently kind of maybe a little bit of decrease over the decades of later life when you don't need them to be very high. But not this cliff, then it really helps preserve a lot of the youthful vitality, brain function, sexual function. I mean, we could get into that, but
You should see his mother. She's like 70, right?
yes.
She's, oh my
Although
God.
she probably would not want me saying that publicly.
Okay. Well, she doesn't look it. Okay. She's just incredible. She's youthful. And, I mean, I'm 45.
You don't look 45 either.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome. And thank you for touching on hormones, because I know I also do have clients of mine that just want to understand mindset a bit differently, that are done having kids or never chose to have kids. And by all means, I 100%, if any clients of mine, I can always refer them to you guys, because hormones do play a crazy thing on us. And, to even speak for myself on my fertility journey, the first progesterone injections that I was prescribed, I had quite a reaction to. So they had to give me a different one. I couldn't tell you what it is now. It's too long for, but I think if I would have known that I could have had someone that was like a match to me, that's incredible. And, yeah. So
yeah, one of the challenges, even just with injections, is that essentially the level will go up when you have the injection, and then it kind of comes down, and then it will go back up again with the next injection. But you have this sort of lag time where right before the next injection, the level may be too low. And so if you're giving oral micronized progesterone, the absorption level is really good. And you can also adjust the dose. If somebody's having, breakthrough whatever, then you can go ahead and up the dose, take an extra capsule, and you can adjust it right there at home. You don't have to have the patient come in. There's a lot of benefits to it. So, that's what we typically use in our practice, and I find it works pretty well. And also it's sustain and release so that the level stays, pretty stable.
Incredible. Thank you. It has been such a joy to meet you and have this conversation. And I truly do believe that anyone listening to this podcast is going to get such amazing information out of this. And I do, with my whole heart, hope that they contact you and can extend their journey in such a different way, because I do believe finding joy in the journey and being educated, and just helping yourself in any way that you can to get to the destination of having your family and having your baby or multiple children. I think it's everyone's story. It's a beautiful thing. So if this is what anyone is called for, I hope that they find you, because I feel blessed that I have been able to have this conversation with you and that our paths have crossed. So again, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Jessica.
If you found this helpful or know anyone that needs to hear this, please share. And don't forget to leave a review and subscribe. In love and gratitude, Jessica.